Thank you all for coming out this morning. My name is Laura Minnick, and I am the Deputy City Manager for the City of West Covina. We do appreciate you guys coming out. As a reminder, this morning's meeting is being live broadcast on YouTube, so feel free to say hi to the viewing audience at home and on the internet. Tony Cantillo is our cable TV assistant, and he will be live broadcasting us today, and I have confirmed we are live. You can watch this later. It is a recorded meeting. It'll be available at westcovina.org/live. We're going to go ahead and get this meeting started. In the back, I do have translators available. So we have Mira available if you need a Tagalog translator. We also have Christina available if you need a Spanish translator. On your agenda, we're going to note that we do have two council members present today. We have Councilmember Toma and we have Councilmember Johnson. Should we reach a quorum for today's meeting, which means that there would be 3 council members present, we will note that in the minutes in the back. I'm going to also introduce my fellow colleagues that are up here joining me today for the presentation. I have Kim Barlow, your city attorney, and I also have Doug Johnson from National Demographics Corporation. Today is a community workshop to discuss districting, and in particular, the draft maps that were submitted by you, the members of the community, as well as our consultant, National Demographics. So we're going to start the meeting off by kind of giving you an outline as how did we get to here. Then I'm going to kick it over to Doug, who's going to talk a little bit more about the maps. Then we're going to give you an opportunity to view the maps that are on the wall up close, as well as ask any questions that you have. We do also have in the room one individual I forgot to introduce before we go any further is Lieutenant Ron Allen, our watch commander from the West Covina Police Department, is here today as well. Thank you so much for coming, Lieutenant Allen. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And we'll go to the first slide. Here we go. How did we get here? So many of you have been following along for quite some time and are aware, but the city was served with what's known as a CVRA lawsuit. CVRA stands for California Voting Rights Act lawsuit. We are not the only city in the state of California to be served with this, nor the only special district, because special districts can also be served with this lawsuit. So that was served on the city of West Covina. On December 6th of 2016, your city council approved moving our city's elections from when they currently were in the odd numbered years in November to be in even numbered years in November. That will take effect in the November 2018 election. And then on February 21st of 2017, that was earlier this year, a settlement agreement was signed by the City of West Covina City Council. And then on May 2nd, as a result of that settlement agreement, we did hire National Demographics Corporation to be the consultant regarding going through the districting process. And his company was hired to help us create these maps and facilitate these types of meetings that we're having today. So as the process began, as you can imagine, it requires several public hearings, coming out to you, the public, and hearing from you, the residents of the city of West Covina, as to what you want to see these districts be located like. Now, in the city of West Covina, our settlement agreement says that we will move to 5 council districts. 5. Those need to be roughly equal in population, about plus or minus 5%. And Doug's going to give you a little bit more information on that as we move forward in today's presentation. So we had our first public hearing on July 18th, and we went out to the community and we talked to you about how do you draw 5 city council districts here in the city of West Covina. If you, as a member of this community, wanted to draw what those maps look like, how could you do it? We gave you the tools. We held community meetings. We did one on July 31st here at the Cameron Community Center, and we did another one on August 9th at Shadow Oak Park. We then held another public hearing. So that was at one of our regular scheduled city council meetings, and that was on August 15th. And we talked about how you can create your own map. That meeting was televised and also streamed live on YouTube. Then we received those maps from the community. You guys were fantastic. We received 16 maps from our community members prior to the city council meeting where they were going to discuss that, and we've received additional maps since then, which was fantastic. So thank you for continuing to provide your feedback regarding those maps. In addition to the 16 that you all submitted as members of the community of West Covina, we also had the consultant design 3 maps that took your feedback from those community meetings, as well as the parameters that are required as part of the settlement agreement. We held our 3rd public hearing on September 19th, and that's where we presented those draft maps. So those are the maps that you see up on the wall to your left, to my right. Those are also the maps that you can view at westcovina.org/districts and use our interactive mapping tool that's available where you can plug in your home address and figure out where exactly you would be located in any of these 19 different maps. And then now, after seeing these draft maps, receiving them from you, the community, as well as our consultant, we're coming back out to you, going back out to the people to get your feedback. So we're holding today's community meeting here this morning. We have another one that's coming up on October 12th at 6:30 over at the Senior Center. And then we'll be going to have feedback from you available online. You can submit your comments, or you can also attend the 4th public hearing that's occurring on November 7th. Now that's a tentative date. We want to hear your feedback. We need to be able to have the council be able to select one map. Ultimately, one map must be chosen for these 5 city council districts. So at this point in time, that final public hearing that we're looking at would be November 7th. And then ultimately, district-based elections would begin in November of 2018. So that's not November of this year, because remember, we're moving to even-numbered years. That'll be November of next year, in 2018. So the public engagement process and mapping, our demographer, he provided lots of different data for you guys to utilize to be able to create those maps. Many of you use the Excel spreadsheets. Many of you use the kits that were provided and drew your hand-drawn maps. We have some fantastic artists in this community. I just want to give some kudos and shout out to you guys. The map designing was wonderful. Thank you so much for providing so much feedback. Doug has done a lot of work in a lot of different cities, and we had great responses from this community with regard to being engaged and wanting to really figure out where those 5 districts should be located. So thank you so much for stepping up and providing that feedback to us and taking the time to design those maps. When you were designing those maps, there were certain things that you had to take into consideration. And some of them had to do with the settlement agreement, applicable laws, and the population size of each of these different districts. Now you'll notice up on the maps that are up on the wall, there's a slide over there, one of the sheets that says these maps are not population-based or not contiguous. And there's a reason that we grouped those together. The way the settlement works and the way the legal requirements are for districts, they need to be either contiguous or population-based, and they need to be balanced. So remember that plus or minus 5% that we were talking about earlier? You'll notice the maps that are on that square over there, some of them have districts that are extremely small and then extremely large. And so those are not going to be recommended for the council to approve. When we had the 2 public hearings and we had all the information that was provided out to you guys, we also made sure to put that up on our website, and that's at westcovina.org/districts. On that location, you can find all the information about the history on the California Voting Rights Act. We have copies of the settlement agreement that are available on our website. You can also find out the schedule of any upcoming meetings and public hearings. You even can sign up for e-notifications to be notified about upcoming meetings, and also ask questions directly of all of our districting staff. So what we're going to do today, what do we want from you today? Well, today we want you to provide feedback on which maps you like the most and also why you like those maps the most. Now, keeping in mind, we have lots of maps here in our community that were submitted, which is fantastic. But give us some key reasons as to what it is about that map that you like the most. Maybe there isn't a particular map that you like the most, but you like one more than another one, but you want a slight modification. This is the opportunity to give us those suggestions regarding any modifications that you want to a particular map if council were to select that map. And then finally, we also want to hear from you. Most importantly, provide us the feedback on which maps you do not like. Which maps are not something that you find would be most identifiable with our community here in the city of West Covina. And again, being specific is extremely helpful. Now, you may be taking a look at all the maps and it can be quite overwhelming. Again, we said there's 19 different maps that are up on the wall for you to look at. 16 of which were submitted by your fellow community members, 3 of which were created by the consultant, with additional maps still coming in. If you are still going to need some more time to think about it, or even after this morning you have more ideas that come up where you want to provide additional feedback, we have several ways for you to do that. You can attend our next community meeting, which will be on October 12th. That's a Thursday night at 6:30 over at the West Covina Senior Center. You can also email your comments to us. We created an easy email address, which is districts@westcovina.org. We ask that you send those comments to us by October 17th if you would like them included as part of our staff report that we're going to be putting together for the November meeting. You can also mail or hand deliver your comments to our city clerk's office. Again, we're asking for those comments to come in by October 17th so that we can include them in that staff report. And then you can complete the online form at westcovina.org/districts. So if you wanted to submit your comments anonymously through the form, that is also available. Now, let's say it's after October 17th and you got a new idea, or you had some inspiration when talking to a fellow resident and you didn't get a chance to submit it. You still have the opportunity to provide that feedback. And that will be as part of the public hearing process that will occur on November 7th, tentatively right now, but we're anticipating Tuesday, November 7th for the 7 p.m. council meeting that night. And that will be the public hearing where the City Council begins that discussion about narrowing those 19 maps down to one single map with 5 City Council districts here in the city of West Covina. So that kind of gives you the history as to how did we get here, where are we currently in the process, and what are we looking to hear from you today. At this point in time, I'm going to turn it over to Doug Johnson from NBC, and he's going to give you a little bit more of an in-depth explanation regarding those different maps and why we have those 4 outliers that are not population balanced and not contiguous, as well as what the other maps can show for you. I'm going to give it over to Doug. Thank you.
So, for those of you who were at the council meeting, this is the same presentation, but I'll skip over some of it, and some of it's already been covered. Again, I do want to say great participation by the community. It's nothing worse than coming and having an empty room or putting out kits so people can draw maps and no one draws anything. So I do want to say it's great. It was, as mentioned, 16 maps for now. It actually is 17. We got another one after the meeting. Plus the 3 from NDC. There we go. And was mentioned, we have the 4 maps that are not population balanced. That's okay because they can convey ideas. You know, it shows what the person was interested in showing, how the different neighborhoods might be grouped. Any of these would have to be revised before the council could adopt it. But we do keep them in the mix because people took the time to draw them and to suggest them. You'll see in each one of these cases there's something fairly similar in the other maps. It's the advantage of having so many maps on the table for us. So what we try to do when we get a lot of maps is to group them into maps that are roughly similar in some way. It makes it a little easier to process and to go through. You're not trying to walk through and want 16 maps and compare 16 maps to each other. Now you can kind of look at this group and say, which of these 3 do I like best? Which of the vertical 3 do I like best? And then just narrow it down that way. So our first group that we put together is really maps that are largely driven by having a Northern District 2. I'm sorry, a Northern District 1. And then kind of a Central District 3. Because when you get those 2 districts in, then that kind of drives the rest of the map. So Northern District 1 above the freeway, you can see map 105, for example, there's too many people north of the freeway to have them all together in just one seat, or just one district. And so it does have to be divided up a little bit. 105 puts, essentially, everyone in District 1 is north of the freeway. 101, and it turned out 101 and 110 were the same map in 2 different submissions. You can see District 1 is almost entirely north of the freeway. It does come down and get a piece below the freeway just west of the mall. That's the mall right there. And in exchange, District 4 then comes north a bit. And 109, it also comes down a little bit below the freeway. It really gets the west half of the freeway corridor in 1, central freeway corridor in 3, and then the eastern part of the freeway corridor in 4. And then they each have roughly a central District 3. 105 and 101 are almost the same seat. Obviously 109 is a very different central district. But the way I like to think of it is, you know, when you're looking at this, does this make sense? As a general breakdown, if it's not the way you think districts should be drawn, then you can ignore all of them. If it does, then you can kind of narrow down and say which of these three makes the most sense. Going on to the next group. Oh yes, there's a lot of these maps that have a Northern District 1. So I had to put them on 2 slides. So you see again, 113, almost entirely District 1 is north of the freeway. You get a very similar District 3. And District 1 in this case comes down a little bit. It's a big block east of the mall. This one really gets you a Western District 2, nice, compact, focused District 2, as is 116 and 115. 115 is a little different in that it brings that Central District 3 up above the freeway instead of bringing District 4 up above the freeway. And then the purple map is different in that District 5 comes up farther. You see the essentially identical District 5 in the south. The configuration of the city and the density of the population down there really puts a lot of people down in the south that there's not much we can do with, not a lot of flexibility in how we can assign them. But there are some small variations. So those were largely Northern District 1 maps. The second group is really a northwestern District 1. And as you can see as you're looking at these are not crystal clear dividing lines. Some of them might fit into multiple groups. But it's a way we're trying to organize our thoughts when there's this many maps. So in all these cases, you see we're getting District 1 is both north and south of the freeway to a significant degree. Many more people south of the freeway than the earlier maps. And one of the differences is 108, you still only have 2 districts north of the freeway, so it's really concentrating that area into 2 seats. They'll have and they'll have a large voice in those 2 seats, but only 2 seats. In contrast, the other maps have 3 districts coming north of the freeway. And this is an interesting challenge in this process, and why there is no right answer, is when we're talking about any community, be it the area north of the freeway, be it the west, any community in the city, what makes the most sense when we're drawing districts? And there's really 2 answers to that. One is to try to keep that area together. You put as many of its voters together in 1 seat so that they have a big, strong voice on election day for that district. But then you only have 1 council member with that voice. So that's the way many communities go. They want it's a neighborhood, they want their person on the council, if at all possible, so they try to keep their area together. More and more though, especially as we see more and more cities going through this process, we're seeing a lot more of, it still takes 3 votes to pass anything. You know, what good is 1 loud voice if the other 4 are going to ignore me? And so this is the big question, and you see it illustrated well in this map, in these maps, is it better to have, there's too many people north of the freeway, for one example of a community, to be a 1 district. Is it better to just have 2 seats that come up there, so you have a maximum voice? Or is it better to have 3? Where when there's an issue that's specific to, and I'm just using that one area as an example, when there's an issue specific to that community, they have a majority of the council that's accountable to them on election day. So this is one of the big questions to wrestle with as you're thinking about what map is best for my neighborhood, what map is best for my community of interest, is do you want to be concentrated in 1 seat, or do you want multiple council members who answer to your neighborhood? Obviously each house will only vote for 1 council member, but maybe the neighborhood association will vote for 2 or 3. Other concrete examples we get of this, we get this a lot in schools. School districts, almost every one of them says, we don't want an entire attendance zone represented by just 1 board member, because then that board member starts to think, this is my school. And they start doing things like bypassing the superintendent and trying to give orders to the principal, and it gets messy. You may have followed down in San Diego, they actually had a board member removed from the board. She was forced to resign because she was trying to get a principal fired and actually got a counselor fired from a school because she felt like that was her school. And so with school districts, we almost always try to draw 2 trustees representing every attendance zone. The other place where this comes in a lot is downtown areas, where you want a majority, or in Pasadena's case, the entire council has a piece of downtown, Colorado Boulevard, so they all feel a stake in continuing the job creation and economic drive in the city. So these are good maps of showing this challenge. And I think all these maps do it for different parts of the city. The only part where this doesn't really happen very much is in the far south. That's because, as was mentioned, the absolute rule is equal population. Federal law requires it. We have to have an equal population. And that's driven by census block geography, because we get our population numbers from the census. And the problem is we have some really big census blocks, especially the old BKK area is one big block. So it's very hard to get around and pass that and bring multiple seats down south. And especially when you get into the narrow necks and that, there's no way to get 2 districts down there and still have accurate population counts. So in some cases we are limited. So the third group kind of embraces, I guess, if some of these are more compact, like I talked about, you have in 113, you have the west side south of the freeway, very united in a very compact district. In contrast, the vertical maps, as we've characterized them, really try to make sure that each council member, as much as possible, is accountable to every part of the city. So they look funny. No one will ever deny that these are not funny-looking maps. But the idea is to stretch each district so that it has a piece of concerns north of the freeway. It has a piece of concerns, to the degree we can get multiple seats. You really have 2 that are solidly in the west-south of the freeway, arguably maybe 3 that have a stake in those issues. In different degrees. So 114, you have all 5 districts coming at least up to the freeway corridor, and 3 of them going north of the freeway. The yellow map actually has 4 going north of the freeway. And then the green map has 4 going north of the freeway in a different manner. So without a doubt, these are funny maps, but hopefully that community of interest discussion I was talking about earlier illustrates why. These are not gerrymandered politically. They're drawn to ensure that every community has multiple council members that they can go to when they have an issue. So we've covered the schedule already. So happy to do this. The other piece, as Laura mentioned, it's hard on these maps to see a lot of really small street detail. So there is an interactive map linked on the city website. I can actually bring it up here. And we can zoom in. You can actually switch from street view to satellite view. So you can actually zoom in and see your house. You can type in your address and it will zoom into your house and you can see exactly where the lines go. Especially in some of these maps where they are longer or it's tougher to see.
All right. So before we go into the Q&A portion and getting the public feedback, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. What I want to do is, now that you've had the chance to see the analysis and kind of an explanation of the maps, I want to give those of you in the audience that haven't had a chance to really go up close to take this 5 minutes to go up to the wall, take a look at the maps, and kind of figure out what kind of feedback you would like to share with us. And then we're going to go into the Q&A portion and the feedback portion. And keeping in mind, we're looking for specific comments regarding which maps you like the most and why, which maps you like the least and why, and then any particular modifications that you would like to a map if that map were to be chosen. So we'll take these 5 minutes and then we'll reconvene.
Yeah, it's always been a little yeah, it's a little bit funny because there's no law that says it shall be used, but it's all unless it's over. 7. So that's all. Right.
Just a 1 minute warning, 1 minute, and we're going to be reconvening the meeting. 1 minute. All right, if everyone could go ahead and take their seats. We're going to go ahead and move into our public comment portion of today's community workshop. All right, everyone can go ahead and take their seats. Lots of great discussion happening. Again, thank you to everyone that came out this morning on a Saturday morning and taking the time to provide your input on this very important topic. Your City Council for the City of West Covina greatly appreciates you taking this time. It is very imperative that we get this feedback from you, the residents of West Covina, to help them make this decision regarding where these 5 City Council districts should be located here in West Covina. So at this point in time, we're going to open it up for our public comment portion. Now, unlike our City Council meetings, I don't have a set timer up here, so I'm not going to be timing you and limiting you to 5 minutes. But I do ask that you be courteous to your neighbors around you. I'm going to try to rotate around the room, so if you've already had a chance to ask a question, I'll probably go to someone new before coming back to you. We're going to try to Make sure that if someone has already asked that question, there's not necessary to ask it again, but if you don't feel that you got the answer that you're looking for, go ahead and ask us, and then we'll see if we can give a different answer that maybe fits what you're looking for, okay? So at this point in time, we're going to open it up for questions and feedback, and remember, what we're looking for is which maps do you like the most and why? Which maps do you not like and why? And what modifications would you like to any particular map if there wasn't a map that you identify with here in West Covina? So I did see Mr. Sykes had his hand up first and then Mr. Shoemaker in the back. Again, as a reminder, we are broadcasting at westcovina.org/live. This meeting is being recorded and we do have Mira in the back taking notes. Mr. Sykes, if you would like to go first and ask your question, I have Ms. Barlow, our city attorney, as well as Mr. Johnson that will be able to answer any questions as well as myself.
Okay, just quick questions. One, the number of elected south of Francisquito, do you have that, Mr. Consultant? The history on the city and the number of elected officials from south of Francisquito.
I think Ms. Barlow, do you want to answer that question?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Johnson's colleague has that information, but under the terms of the settlement agreement, we cannot take those residences of the council members or candidates over the last 10 years into account in actually selecting the district lines. The knowledge about the most and the least, so that we can select the order in which the districts will go, will come after that in a separate process.
Okay. And then when the map is, when we get close to the final ones, or at least the final one, when we have the demographics and the voter turnout data to align with the map so that we can review it, so the public can review the demographics and the voter turnout.
Yes, each of the maps has on the flip side, on the back side, all of that information. And I think some of it is 2014, some of it is 2012. The 2016 information is just now coming out on voter turnout. And so to the extent that we can have that updated, we will, but we may not have all of that until after we've done with this process.
Thank you. Now, because I'm a late bird, will those be available to have this information? Because I think they're all out.
They're available.
The information we brought several sets for those that have not had a chance to view them, but all that information is available on our website at westcovina.org/districts. And then we have several copies that are available here. And if you'd like additional copies made, you can come over to the city clerk's office, City Hall. We'd be happy to print those copies for you.
Thank you. And then my final question, dealing with our associated comment with the maps. Trying to review the CDRA and looking at the maps that are up here on display, and you show the different families or after similar and related. I would say the ones, after all the years that we've been struggling with this situation, the ones that seem to make sense are the ones that are compact and use the freeway as a major divide to keep as many folks together so they can more easily communicate and identify with each other. That's north of the freeway. And then the ones that come south that are compact, that are putting neighborhoods locked together instead of extended far apart, where their representative is again far away from them. The maps that bring it tighter facilitates, in my mind, in my experience, it makes it easier for someone within a radius of a certain geographic area that's compact to simply come over if they have to, if they haven't been able to. If the knucklehead doesn't answer, whether it's a male or a female, if they don't respond to their needs, they know where to find them and can easily somehow figure out how to do it. Either bring a neighborhood watch group or they can come alone. But there should be somebody that's in the supermarket. They'll be able to contact them somehow. They'll learn about how do I see my council member from District 1 so I can talk to them up close and personal. That, to me, is facilitated by the compactness, and that's why I prefer the compact type districts that use the mountains that divide us. Or I should say the large should be on the mountain, but we have large hills. The major freeway, highways, Glendora, Sunset, Azusa, and then of course there's a major freeway in the dump. So, thank you.
Thank you. And so just a reminder, all those feedback comments that are being given are being recorded, as well as taken by Mira's taking notes in the back, and Ms. Paul Barlow, our city attorney, is also taking notes as well. All right. Mr. Shoemaker was next. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. and there's a couple little tweaks I would make just so it didn't quite as funny, but basically had the same impact. And what I did when I sat down in the office was what would give more power to people. And the way it turns out is the districts that did the south, that basically have to both districts are on the south side along the north. It would prevent people, because chances are 400 or 500 votes would be in your process. You know, that type of thing. So when you have to take into account a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of issues, you're going to be more inclined to look at the city in a whole instead of what will get me votes in my district. The example I use, since I've lived here since 1990, is BKK would still be open, we'd still have dump trucks dumping trash up there, and the south side would still be putting up with all the smell and things like that, if there were council districts. Why? Because in most normal maps that are drawn, or regular maps that are drawn, 3 council districts would not be affected by BKK, at least 3, if not 4. Why would I, as a city council member, want to give up $5 million a year in revenue when the people who are affected by it can't vote for me? They can't remove me from office. They can't do anything that adversely affects me. This way, you have 2, if not 3 council members who would be willing to listen to people who would be adversely affected by that, because they know 200 people on the south side don't vote for me, I'm out of office. All so that was the idea of going north-south, is that it makes it a little bit more in play that way. It gives you at least some influence. And it makes it a little bit more difficult, because if you look at it, almost no matter what neighborhood you live in, there's somebody who is affected on the other district by what's going on. Especially on the north side, where that's been delegated, low-income neighborhood. So you get the junk loans, you get the high-density housing, you get the ideas of let's take away some of your park, put in a new fire station, you have to maintain the other way. You look at that map, you have 2, if not 3 council members who would at least have to be concerned not to get the people on the north side mad. Again, if I'm on the south side, I'm on the east side, I'm on the west side, I'm in the central, I don't care if you're mad at me. If it makes my council, if it makes the people in my district who vote for me happy. I know there's going to be people who get up and say, oh, well, we're going to be concerned about the whole city. I think I've made the remark that you're going to be concerned about the whole city until something is in your district and you're going to lose your seat if you vote for the whole city instead of just your district. And you might be strong enough to say, well, I'm going to take that chance. Well, the next guy or woman who replaces you isn't going to be as interested in the whole city. They're going to be interested in my district. And you start making deals that really start hurting you. The other thing that's nice about the way it was drawn, quite by accident, is it gave other minority members of our community more of a say in at least one council. So I think that also helps to help the diversity of what we're doing. Some people talk about well, it's not compact, it's not compact. I bring up, I think it's Hilda Salisa's supervisory district. It goes from Glendora to Hawthorne. It's a J. Now, please tell me how that's compact. The only thing that's in common with that, or anything that's compact or contiguous, is G and H follow each other in the alphabet. I don't think the people in Glendora have the same problems as the people in Hawthorne, by any stretch of the imagination. So, when this was drawn, the idea was to give as many people in an area as much of an influence over multiple council districts. I didn't even pay attention to where council members live. I've been involved long enough where I know just about where every council member has lived, who's been on the council, or anything else. But really trying to say what would benefit our community the most, and not Walgreens. Like I said, I think a couple little tweaks to make them a little bit easier to follow. But outside of that, that was the idea behind it, is to make sure everybody has a say, or more of a say than the previous side.
Thank you. Before we go, Mr. Sykes, I just want to make sure we're rotating around the room. Is there anyone else that had a question or comment? Yes. And if you would like, you are not required to, but if you would like to announce your name for the record, you're welcome to.
Chris Miller, West Covina resident for 17 years, north side. we had a public meeting about bike lanes, and ex-council member went nauseam about biking everywhere, yet he never bikes anywhere. Bike lanes are going to affect the north side. Not even the bike lanes are going to affect the north side. Marijuana growing, multi-use housing, on and on. You're not going to get multi-use housing in the south side with bike lanes. I grew up in Glendale, and the thing is, back in the 80s, people were buying up houses, developers were buying up single-family houses and putting up apartment complexes. With SB2 passing, what do you think is going to happen in the north side? So, for that reason and all the other reasons I gave, I would also support John Shoemaker's notion of subdividing north-south, having 3 people have a say in a council meeting, and keeping the overall well-being of the community, not just certain areas. Oh, this is my area, I care about it, and all the people. No, we need to look at the whole city and what's the best interest for the people that live here. They have to deal with that. They have to deal with pulling out of the driveway. On Wednesday, it's insane sometimes trying to pull out. I've been in an accident trying to just get out of my house. Putting in a bike lane is only going to make things worse.
I think I saw Ann, and then we're going to go here. Ann Gribich.
I've been a resident here. I'm happy to live in West Covina for 46 years, and I'm here to lobby for my own plan, which isn't up there yet because I was kind of if we want more services, if we want more public safety and better roads, the best way to get there is to increase our revenue through economic growth. And Interstate 10 is the lifeblood of our community and economic growth. My plan is the only plan that gives part of West Covina corridor to every district. District 1 I have with West Covina Plaza. District 2 has the lakes and downtown area. District 3 has Auto Road. District 4 has Eastland. And District 5 has Restaurant Road with the hotels and LA Fitness and those. It's a north-south plan that crosses neighborhoods in hopes of uniting rather than dividing West Covina. I don't want to see a balkanized city with one area pitted against another. As Mr. Shoemaker was saying, you have one area that, for whatever reason, people don't like that council person, or for whatever reason, they can just gang upon them and ignore them. So if everybody wants a stake in it, that's a good thing. And I wanted to talk a little bit about gerrymandering. I know that's been a big complaint. It generally refers to changing district boundaries for partisan political purposes, Democrats versus Republicans. And that doesn't apply to us because we're nonpartisan. And the state law actually encourages gerrymandering for balancing purposes. And it doesn't forbid it, and it actually says the city council may take compact into districts that would consider changing boundaries. And there's a thing I passed out with my plan on it, we go on to the next one, that's someone else.
And Ann, we were able to get your map here up on the screen. The wonders of technology are amazing. So, yes, as Ann had mentioned, she had submitted it after the September 12th deadline, so it wasn't one of the maps that was presented to council at the September 19th public hearing. But because we were able to receive it from you electronically, Doug was able to load it into the interactive mapping system, and it is already up on the website as of this morning. So look at that. As of how many minutes ago?
It was up about 9:58.
There we go. So just in time for today's 10 o'clock meeting.
Let me flag too for those here and tell your friends too that so this is 117. There's actually 116 has been added since the council meeting, and 118 is still in my to-do box. So in the next day or two, you'll see 116, 117, 118 up on the website and added, and then we'll get the files over to the city staff on Monday morning. So they'll appear on, so then you'll have the demographics and those things. So keep an eye on the website. As new maps come in, we are adding them as fast as we can.
The election code and some other things that are in this. But I hope we'll all give serious consideration of this because I think having Interstate 10 as part of every It's going to give us more services because every council person will have an incentive to make that a better place and more commercial, so we don't have to raise taxes on the restaurants.
Thank you so much, Ann. All right. And if you could just announce your name for the record, if you were comfortable with that. I'm sorry?
Freeman,
Okay.
29-year resident. Good morning. My comments actually might be a little bit repetitive now after the last couple of speakers, but I think the idea that we're seeing with the more vertical alignment and having some of the key defining characteristics of the city shared is important. Two that I wanted to point out, I think in particular are the TAN and ZUSA, that particularly the freeway, having those above and those below that actually share a lot of the same challenges, the traffic, when there's an accident, people are off through the neighborhoods, what type of development around that is important, and I think the same with the ZUSA. So that thinking about some of these defining characteristics and having those shared is very important.
Thank you. Yes.
My name is Dave Stewart. Actually, I've been all the meetings so far. But the first, in the early going, 105 was kind of like a lot more to them right now. And I think it was said in the last council meeting when they were talking about it. No matter which campus there was, probably would be somewhere we want somewhere. There's not going to be perfect. The reason I'm standing up here, James map is nice, but I'd like to mention like the Plaza Mall, the Lakes downtown area, Harlem Road, Eastman Center, Restaurant Road. Why couldn't it be a common area where all councilmen involved in the building the population? Just take those out of the equation, make that all one group, all 5 councilmen be responsible. Let's just thought, I'm going to even work. I don't see why it would be. Anyway, if it didn't work out anyway, we got a new census in a couple of years, and have to change anyhow. So, at least that's my thought, and I haven't agreed made a decision on what I was using that today, but there's 2 or 3 that are also on my mind that have really big ones that
Thank you. What I'd like to do, just to piggyback on Mr. Stewart's comments, is just let Ms. Barlow maybe kind of comment on that, and then letting you guys know that yes, as Mr. Stewart mentioned, we will have to do this again when there is another census. So I'll let her kind of share that with you.
Yes, with respect to the point about being able to have the business area without residents shared by all 5 council members, we really can't do that. We are required to have every part of the city in a district. And as you know, some of the changes that are happening in that area is that more residents are coming into the downtown area in any event. We will be doing this again after the next census. Typically, it would be about a year after the census before we would actually start that process and get those new numbers in effect and be able to, again, look at the existing map, compare populations and other issues to that existing map to see where lines might need to be adjusted. Usually it's not a wholesale free-for-all, it's all up for grabs now. It's usually just an adjustment of lines based upon the changes in population in the districts as time goes on.
If I can piggyback on that a little bit, let me show you. If you may not see it on the PDF maps, but Plan 115 has this funny lines around the mall. Let me zoom in so you can really see what's going on. So, So it's the idea of a common area, as Secretary mentioned, we can't leave an area vacant. Let me see if I can get this up. But so what we do is we try to put some funny lines that bring everything in there. So in 115, we did this because the resident called me up and asked questions about it, and we went down to the census block level. But it is a way that you get 3 districts covering them all. So the funny lines that you see, why are the pink and the blue and the green coming together here? It's so that City Hall and the west end of the parking lot are in the pink, The body of it, the census block that covers the body of it, is in blue, and then the east parking lot and the stores off at the east end of the mall are in 3. So that's why some of these funny lines take place, is we can't make it a common area that all 5 generically represent, but we can try to bring 3 seats into that area. And that's something that, this is where our maps have advantage, because I'm working on much more fine-tuned geography than you have. But if residents submit maps or like that kind of approach, we can do that in many of the maps.
Great, thank you. Again, before we go back to Mr. Sykes, I'm so sorry, I just want to make sure we get some additional comments. I think we had right here, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Alfred Williams. I'm one of your residents. And I'm like Mr. Stewart there. I like the 105 and any of the compact maps that represent that. I do have a problem with the vertical maps. At first when I saw them, I thought, hey, this seems like to be a great idea. The problem with the vertical maps is that you are separating communities totally. There's north side, south side, middle, east, west, there's no representation. And if you were going to do a south side, or north to south, my question, first thing came into my mind was, why not go west to east and see if we can come up with that? Those would do the same thing. Yet I have not seen a map that goes west to east. So, and even from our demographics personnel, I haven't seen anything. So I would say you can accomplish the same thing as being your business. And we should also look at that. And when it is presented to the council, I hope it's presented. I'm from path engineering background. When you come up with a solution to a problem, you state the problems, you offer the reasons of why this works and why the other ones don't work. And then you say, the best choice that we can find out of these is 1, 2, and 3. And I hope that's where we're going. And a lot of people have mentioned this gerrymandering. One of the maps there, I don't know which one it is, but 114 looks like it's close to it. So it was set up to try and keep the incumbent presently in office in those districts. I hope that's not one of the way we're going. I'm not sure if it's 114, but that's one of them that was set up that way. If we're going that route, then the idea of establishing districts and gerrymandering to try and keep them incumbent in office is against what the CBR is all about. And if I have a say so in that, then that's going to be definitely a rejection. I think everybody else should reject it. Anything that's set up to try and keep an incumbent in place. Not that I have anything against the incumbents or anything, but this is not the idea. I was watching a program the other night about gerrymandering, and it was a Republican representative on there. He said, gerrymandering right now in the United States is set up so that the candidate maximizes his vote. Well, it shouldn't be that way. The citizen should be setting up the district or whatever it is to maximize their influence on the city council. And I hope we're approaching it from that sense. Not what, hey, I want to keep this person, I don't want this person. And we're conjecturing when we say that some person is not going to get in an argument and not want to do something from someone else. That's a conjecture I think should be thrown out. I don't think anyone in this room should make that a decision in how they come up with that, because that's, you're trying to predict something out in the future that you don't know what's going to really happen. Thank you.
Okay, and before we go on, I do want to have Ms. Hall-Barlow comment on with regard to incumbents and their current addresses and how we kind of address that in this issue.
Yeah, the settlement agreement specifically provides that there shall be no preference based on incumbency or the residence address of any either council member or council candidate over the past 10 years. And that's one of the reasons why in all of these maps you don't see that, a label showing where each council member currently lives or where past council members live or where future potential council members live. Obviously, people may take that into consideration in their own minds when they submit a map. The council has agreed to and has committed that it will not do that when it selects the map. I did want to make one other comment about new maps or changes to existing maps. Under the law, we are required to have each map that ultimately could be the final map discussed and available at 2 public hearings. So any map that wasn't available at the public hearing in September could not be adopted at the next public hearing in November. If one of those later submitted maps is to be adopted, we would have to have yet another public hearing after November 7th in order to do that. That is what the law requires. So same with a map that is adjusted. If let's say 114, let's say Mr. Shoemaker said something about adjustments that he might make, tweaks that he might make. If he were to submit that, again, that would be a map that had not yet been discussed at a public hearing, and so would have to have 2 public hearings before it could be considered for adoption. So I just wanted to make that clear.
And your city council has committed to having as many public hearings as necessary in order to adopt these maps. So, but we do have to have it all completed by December 16th per the settlement agreement. Now, that is a Saturday, and that was based on calendar days and counting from the date of the settlement agreement. But as Ms. Hall-Barlow mentioned, November 7th is a tentative date with regard to the next public hearing, because if a map that was previously presented at the public hearing on September 19th is to be adopted, it could be adopted as part of that November 7th meeting, because it would be the second time that map would be presented in a public hearing setting. If instead the council and the community would prefer to have a different map than any of the ones that was submitted on September 19th or any modifications to, then we have scheduled several other tentative meetings, including November 14th. You also have a council meeting on November 21st. There's one on December 5th. And so we will have additional opportunities to be able to make that come to fruition. Again, your city council wants the best map possible for the community. But as Ms. Hall-Barlow mentioned, if it's a map that's chosen that was already shared at the September 19th meeting, then it could be adopted as part of the November 7th meeting. Okay, so we got that question answered. I think Jerry had a question. Go ahead. Jerry Patras.
A comment and then a question.
Okay.
I really appreciate the time people take doing these maps. It's not something I've done. I really support the vertical ones. I think Ann Rivich has added to what John Shoemaker did. Living north of the freeway and the monitor, I'm sorry, that was
Doug Johnson.
Your explanation of the vertical maps and cities going to that is so important, and that's my concern. Living up there with only 1 or 2 representatives, we have a lot of seniors. We don't have the senior services. We have the low-income housing designation, and that just seems to be popular with city staff. And I would like to see multiple representatives north of the freeway that a vertical map provides, so that there is a viable, good discussion before things just happen. I think it's imperative that council members see the city as business zones and homes. It's not just, my concern with these other maps, especially 105, is that they are really, living here for a while, traditional campaign maps that candidates have used to get elected. And that's only dealing with one little segment of the city. The city is so much more than just a convenient little neighborhood where a candidate can walk. And then maybe subsequently have neighbors contacting him. I think school districts with the attendance zones are right on target. I worked in the public sector. We don't want a school being dealt with by one representative, nor do we want just one neighborhood, we being many of us, being dealt with by one council member. The vertical maps recognize the economic zones, which is much more than just the mall. I think I never really connected some of the dots to the auto zone and stuff. We've got to have a vibrant business zone, or we're going to lose business. Having council members working together on that, I think, is good. I have talked to a couple of council members. In my heart, I believe they are sincerely not going to draw lines to benefit themselves. I think they are taking this process seriously. I would encourage West Covina residents to trust that they are doing it that way. If they're not, we can just work, vote them out. If in their district. I am very concerned about this process. I want to see the city united, not divided. Thank you.
Ma'am, you had a question, comment?
Yes. I think my concerns would be with modification of maps, and I've not participated in the process at all. So, number one, I had a question, maybe it's for Mr. Johnson. When the maps are drawn, do they split the census blocks at all? I mean, are you splitting census blocks?
No.
No. Because I was wondering if anybody did any circular map drawings. Say, one meeting I attended at, it was a town hall meeting. They said the civic center, the center of this city was in the Glendora area. It wasn't by the courts, and it included the mall. So if you did some circular designs, what would that do to the city in terms of making it an ellipse or something else? So that was one of my concerns. Another concern I had was apartment dwellers. I looked on the back of here, and every page of every of these maps, it says rented property 33% and owned property 67%. I suspect they make these rentals and these owned houses across all demographics. Maybe people who are renting are minorities. I don't know. Maybe they're seniors. Maybe they're a transient population. I don't know. But I thought that was an interesting variable in terms of who votes. And quite frankly, I don't know who votes in West Covina. I know that land measure for selling the property by the hospital was a very low turnout voting, and I probably was one of the few who said, don't sell the land to the hospital. And I wasn't well informed even to make that vote. Another concern I had is turnout percentages on your diagrams back here. It said Spanish surname people, and I'm just pulling one randomly from one of these, said 50% turnout, Asian 7%, and Filipino 2%. So I was wondering, what about the other 41% of turnout? Who are these people? Are they Native Americans? Are they darker colored people? Are they pink people? Or whatever? And let's see. Design. Population, the main thing Mr. Johnson said, I think, was to get voting numbers equal in each district with maybe a 5% deviation. And is that population number on the voting population or the household populations? I didn't know what that number was. And maybe it's something very simple. And that's all that comes to my mind at the same time. And I'll look at these. I think these are beautiful. And I've never done a map, and maybe I'll do a circular map with you folks who are well versed that maybe might want to try some things. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to have Mr. Johnson answer a couple of those questions, and we'll start with the last question that she asked about, is it by voters in the population, or is it actual population?
Sure. So a question comes up a lot. Thank you for asking that. So the rule is that we have to have an equal number of total people, regardless of age or anything like that. It's just total census counted people in each district. So just total population. You will get differences in voter turnout and voter registration numbers as a result. So it is total population. In terms of the surname voters, the voter percentages, the state compiles these numbers, and they have lists of surnames from the Census Bureau that are what they call heavily likely to be Spanish surnames or Latino residents. So they run that list. And then they have another list that is, it's actually a whole bunch of Asian American nationalities, but we've grouped them together to get the Asian number and then the Filipino number. So those are state-run surname lists. The remainder is everyone else. So there's no surname list that can separate African Americans from white voters. The two groups don't have different last names. So the remaining percentage is everyone else. Caucasian, African American, Armenian, Middle Eastern, or whatever, all the other groups combined are in that other percentage, because we don't have any way of breaking those out.
Were those all did we get all your questions?
Oh, and then the circular.
Circular.
The challenge that the circular map runs into is the funny shape of the city. You know, you have this long southern foot or tail or boot or whatever you want to call it, that is very heavily populated. So as you see, it's hard to get a southern district that comes very north at all. So you could never get a district that had that southern part and circled the entire city. You just hit that population number too soon.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
I did back on 15, and in beginning the process, the two points of interest that I felt the most important were, as Mr. Johnson described, and as I discussed at the hearing of the council meeting a few weeks ago, was dividing the mall area into as many districts as possible. And the way he described it, that I did it was the majority of the council members would have a direct interest in the mall. I won't go repeat anything that's already been said about that. But the other point is also, I've always seen Interstate 10 as an artificial boundary. And I did my best also to have as many districts as possible have areas both north and south of the freeway. I think that's an important concept. I've lived 3 blocks north of the freeway for 35 years, and I've never felt a kinship to people who live right next to me north of the freeway as opposed to having a lack of kinship with people who are just south of the freeway. I think that's an artificial distinction that should be avoided here, because there's a continuity of interest going north and south of the freeway through most of the city. And many of the areas that have been discussed and described really that's just something that's a hindrance as opposed to contributing to a sense of community either north or south. Those are basically my interest in the way I build my map. And even if mine isn't the one that's chosen, I think there should be some consideration given into whatever I read or whichever other map is chosen to make some adjustments so that most importantly there is that division in all areas. The majority of the council members that direct interest was probably the most important single area of the city as far as commerce, the economy, revenue stream, and all that.
Thank you. That's Phil Kaufman. Any other questions from first-time speakers? First-time speakers, Mr. Kennedy?
Yeah, first of all, I'm Glenn Kennedy, 55-year resident. My family's been here for well over 100 years, so we ain't no young lately. I want to thank everybody for showing up. If we agree or disagree, that we all care. I just have one. I wanted to answer Mr. Sykes. He asked how many council members have been elected south of Francisco. Well, that answer is 2, and Mr. Sykes is one of them. Mr. Melendez is the other one. To be fair about that, to be fair, your house was not developed till the mid-70s. I think Galaxy, where Morganfield is, was the only little section of town over there, and that was built in the early 60s. Now, in all fairness, I grew up north of the 10 freeway, and that was all developed in the early 50s, and we've only had 3 people elected. And actually, Boyd Johnson is the only person who's elected due north of the freeway. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. And any other first-time speakers? Okay. Mr. Sykes.
Okay, before I forget about a couple of things that were not correct. Roger Hernandez he's a council member and assemblyman. He lives south of Francisco. And then, of course, there's Mr. Melendez, and then I. So there's been 3 Latin north of the freeway. I can't think of her name now. I think she was the first female mayor.
Nancy Manners.
Thank you.
Nancy Manners and her title.
So Nancy Manners lives north of the freeway, and so does Mr. Johnson, Councilmember Johnson. I just want to make sure that we kind of get that straight. The gerrymandering
was originally down in North too.
I'm sorry.
He was originally elected to live on the North too.
I'm sorry. Who?
He might do if he already.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. I think gerrymandering is an important word that we should understand. And we have quite a few pictures of that. One example that was kind of mentioned of long extended districts that actually seem to be all the way across the county, east and west. The answer to that question would be, how did it happen? Gerrymandering. So I think that we should be very cautious of things that do fit the description of gerrymandering, because of what we have in the Supreme Court right now. We may have a legal definition given to us that will cover our nation completely on what gerrymandering is. So if you're familiar with it, I would say that we might want to try to stay away from that as much as we can, because that's costly. Going on the Supreme Court is going to court because someone says it looks like gerrymandering. That's court money. Now, for me and my neighbors, for some of us who were Johnny-come-laters, absolutely, I agree with you. We are Johnny-come-laters, and that's very sad about that. But there's nothing to be done about that history. All we can do is try to take up what we see now. And there's been some comment of our city is divided and we don't want to divide it. Well, from our perspective, that's why we came. That's why we came, because we don't sleep in the North End. We don't sleep north of Freeway. We don't sleep at the mall. We don't sleep in South Hills. We sleep where we sleep. And for my community, that's South Francisco. And once the beast was awakened by one of our neighbors who took the time to get involved, we went to City Hall because we were trying to protect our bedrooms, because we were trying to protect our parks and our amenities, our quality of life. That's why we went to City Hall. And when we got there, we were powerless. It seemed that we were powerless to stop what was happening to us. So we took the time to study, to organize, and some of us are like enemies now. And that's super sad. But some of us studied the situation. And we said, what the hell is happening? We paid for where schools should be. And those schools weren't built for us. We paid for our places where parks should be, where we had the sales that have disappeared. That's what made us hang out at City Hall, to try to understand what is driving this loss for us. What is driving this loss for us? We've been there, some of us, 40, 50 years also. And then when we begin to wake up, parks, 13 acres, park space, gone. When I was younger, when I bought my home, I didn't care. I was young, strong, I could bench press 400 pounds off my chest. I ran all up and down the streets. I rode my bike all over the place for 100 miles sometimes. I would ride my bicycle. And it didn't matter to me because I wasn't thinking about the big picture. What happens when I get to be 66 and my arthritis and other things makes my lifestyle change? What's going to be there so I can adjust to that? That's when that park space that we lost is important. We don't have a swimming pool in our neighborhood. Swimming pool helps an old person like me now deal with the pain that I can take with no problem, riding a bike and running up and down the street for 6 miles or whatever. I don't do that anymore because it hurts. It's very painful for me now. But a pool would help. I live in a small home. To put a pool there really won't do much for me other than cool me off from the heat. It won't give me the cardio that I need, like a municipal pool that's now being reconstructed in the north. So there's a misnomer from our perspective. People say the city is being divided and we want to keep our city together. The bottom line is that when you pick the right people to be on the city council, when you do your due diligence, you will have someone. It's not always guaranteed, but you will have someone that will not only be concerned about their part-time, but they know that there's a nexus, just like the body. Just like the body, there's a connection. That's what the physical workout is all about. It's about the whole body. Most of us don't look at it like that because you look at the guys with big muscles and sleek physique. But it's also about the mind and the heart. So when you have a whole council that works like that, that our city is like one mind, one body, one heart. And when you get that seed, that's what you need to have in mind. One mind, one body, one heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I've got some first-time commenters first, and then we'll come back to you, Mr. Shoemaker. Bertie, go ahead.
My name is Bertie, and I'm originally from the South Side, and my heart will always be the South Side. I lived in the South Side for over 30 years. I moved there in 1971 when the home was just starting. We had no problems with council members, whether they were from South Hill or wherever to go. The council members back in my time when I was there, they helped us. Sure, we were like way up there and we didn't have any help or things, but it takes a community to go to city council. Former city manager Jim Starberg named me the South Side. Athens has named me the trash queen. And I'm proud of it. You know why? Because I fight. When I moved to the North Side, and I don't think any council member will do this. When I moved to the North Side, people call me up. We got this problem. And you call dispatch and they're okay, you gotta get the car out there. I'm over there at 2 in the morning. I'll call dispatch back. Council will call. It's all taken care of. It's something basic, but people are afraid to come out. But I'm not gonna lie to you people. I'm against districts. But that didn't stop me. I didn't say, oh, what the hell, these people. I'm not involved anymore. I am still involved. 46 years in the city. And people say, well, we don't have enough votes. You're not going to get any more votes because you went into districts. You're not. Now, I like him, I mean that, but that's you. I'm in this district. Okay, let's say there's something that, okay, I can't go to Shoemaker because he's not in my district. I think, there's going to be, I want to see if the votes go up in numbers at the polls. And they're not. They're not. A lot of people said they criticized our police department. I didn't criticize my police department because I got a witness back here and tell you, when I'm mad, I'm at the police station. I want to talk to Washington Manor. Well, what is it about? I want to talk to Washington Manor. We have a good police department. I go back to Chief Meacham. We had drug issues on the South Side. I didn't know Chief Meacham. I walked in there and I told him, 7 a.m. with Roxford. And I mean, Chief Meacham, disrespect. They work well. You can't walk into somewhere with an attitude. You can't. If you push my buttons, I haven't been on the low heights ballet. The volume doesn't come on. But you know what? I just want to express my feelings about the South Side. Sure, we got cheated on things, but hey, we had to get out there and fight. And I want to thank former City Manager Starberg because he brought the South Side into the site. And all council members, I mean, they were there to help us. We got along. And I'm sorry to say, Covina didn't do that stuff. And that was his own, well, not district, but that was his area. I just want to, express my opinion. I am against districts, and all this money that was spent, that money could have gone to our police and fire department. Yes.
Yes.
So you know what? I want to express my opinion. Now, if we're going to do districts right now, and he decides he's not going to run anymore, and I don't like him, guess what? I'm not vote. Because I vote for it. And they'll say that we won't post vote. You got a vote for that, whether choose the 2 rotten apples, choose the best one. I don't want any more rotten food. So I don't vote. I'm sorry. That's my opinion. I hope I didn't upset anybody.
Good answer.
Thank you.
All right. And then right next to you, another first-time speaker.
Yeah, so this is my first meeting. I have been helping the progress of this, and my concern is that with creating new districts, I would advocate and urge that neighborhood preservation is a priority. I think it would also be helpful to kind of understand the dynamics of each district as we move forward in this progress, and understand the assets, understand the needs as much as possible, so that when we move forward on how these districts are selected and who selects them, that, you know, we come in with a great understanding beyond what the need is to just divide the city up. It's dividing the city up on these neighborhoods, what are the needs, and how these needs are going to be addressed moving forward. So, yeah, a lot of folks may not be happy about this process, but at the end of the day, we have to move forward and address it in a way that preserves the neighborhoods and districts are created where folks don't feel divided and communities continue to stay cohesive. So that's my
Thank you. As we continue going on to our meeting, our end time today is going to be 12 o'clock noon, so we still have 25 minutes to receive your feedback. I do encourage you, if you can, if there is a particular map and you have a number in mind that you do like, or you see something that you dislike, please do share that. That really does help us with the feedback. The generic feedback is also helpful as well. So saying that you like vertical maps, or you like maps that are more concentric and they keep communities together, that's also helpful. But if you do have specific map numbers, we welcome those comments as well. We had a first-time speaker down here, Robert Torres.
I submitted map 101. So I don't know if you can that. And what I did, and when I was drawing my maps, map 101 was kind of what I based my initial thoughts on. And I actually drew 4 maps. But most of those maps are similar to 101. It was just a variation, so I didn't spend as much time as I would have liked. But map 101 essentially takes into consideration the downtown district, which was, I think, recently formed. And that was my, as a resident that lives near downtown, that was my concern. And I also had concerns with compactness and making sure communities were kept together. So as you can tell, District 1 has like a civic center, and it also incorporates the Queen of the Valley. District 2 has the mall, and District 3 has the lakes area. And I know that 2 other districts don't have the mall, but I thought at least 3 districts was a good representation enough. And I wasn't stuck on that though, so there's other maps I drew that incorporate the downtown district into one voting district. So the second one I drew was map 111. And 111 is essentially the same concept, but 111 is just a different breakdown with respect to communities. It still shares the downtown. The intent there is to share downtown. But now you have more north-south of the freeway. And as you can tell, the same thing. District 1 is Civic Center and Queen of the Valley. District 2, Mall, and District 3 has the lakes. And District 4 and 5, 4 would be like the eastern area, and 5 would be the Heights area. And then the other 2 I drew were all downtown in one district. And that was 112. Has all downtown in one district. So if you were to prefer to keep downtown in one district, that would be an option. Preferably, I think sharing downtown would be better, but I'm not stuck on either. I think having the downtown in one district goes along the lines of keeping a community of interest together. So, and then 113 is just another variation of that. 113 would keep downtown all in one district. And I know there was a lot of opinions as far as north-south, and I think there was a lot of good points made, because I know that when Jerry had mentioned that having 3 districts north, at least 3 districts north of the 10 is something she would like. So those maps could be modified to reflect that. And then another issue I thought that was really important, and I think most maps reflected this, was that each district should share a border with at least 2 or 3 other districts, not be isolated in the sense that one district is completely isolated to the east or to the west, where you would only have one neighboring district, just because that would encourage more collaboration between those boundary lines. And that's the one issue I have with the vertical maps. A lot of the vertical maps had that, where they would isolate the like further east district as opposed to the furthest west district. And that was an issue that I thought was important, because that would result in the same issues that you were mentioning about let's say the 3 easterly districts wouldn't care about the furthest westerly district, because that's just not important to them, or they're not impacted by those votes. And then also, a major issue I had with the vertical was that they were